So we have been reading this Rice Seedling Sutras, and we have went through the sections where um, he talks about the dependent arising, external dependent arisings and internal dependent arisings, and within the external dependent arisings, the explanations on how external phenomena objects, those conditioned phenomena objects, how they are dependent on cause and conditions, multiple cause and conditions. And without that multiple cause and conditions, those cannot come into existence. But when all the cause and condition come together, then those results are being produced, whether you have the wish or not, it comes into existence. In the same way, then that also applies to the internal dependent arisings. And so, with all the internal cause and conditions, the multiple internal cause and condition together, then internal result of samsaric birth and then the suffering with the suffering that comes with the samsaric rebirth, such as sickness, aging, death, all that comes, and all those resolve the samsaric birth and then sickness, aging, death, all of comes because the internal cause and conditions have come together. When all those internal cause and condition has come together, even you do not want all these sufferings, it will manifest. If we do not wish or want those suffering, then we have to stop assembling or creating those causes that give birth, that give rise to those suffering. So, and in terms of that, then in discussing this internal dependent arisings, then the 12 link, how the sufferings of aging and death is produced by the samsaric birth, and how samsaric birth is produced by the link of becoming, and how the link of becoming arises because the link of grasping and craving. And the reason why that there is craving and grasping arising because there is a feeling. And the feeling arises because there is a contact with the object, like consciousness. And the consciousness is able to contact with the objects because through the support of six senses. And the six senses come into existence or develop those six senses and come into those because there is name and form. The link of name and form. And there is a link of name and form because of consciousness. And there is consciousness link that carry the karmic seed because of karmic formations. And there is a karmic formations because there is ignorance. Without of that ignorance, then we create karma. And there's karmic formations. And so we are on that. And in terms of that, then find here a section where So what is the ignorance? So identifying the ignorance, the root of all this, the very root of all the 12 link, or the root of all the sufferings. What is the ignorance? And again, here it talks about the ignorance self-grasping. And within the ignorance self-grasping, there can be many level of self-grasping, growth to subtle. The growth level of self-grasping is, grasping or perceiving the self to be partless, unity, permanent. That is one level of self-grasping, growth. And then there's a little bit more self-grasping, which is a little bit more subtle than that. And that is the self-grasping of the self to exist as substantially, substantially autonomous. And then there's another level of self-grasping. The most subtle level of self-grasping is the grasping of the self to exist inherently. So those ignorance, after those ignorance, those self-graspings, grow to subtle level of self-grasping, especially the most subtle level of self-grasping, of the grasping of the self to exist inherently from its own side. And that is the very, that ignorance is the root of all the sufferings. Okay? And the link, both of the 12 links. So we are page number 10. And also, yeah, so we are in the, in the paragraph 2, we already kind of read a little bit here what is ignorance, and that which perceives the same sixth element to be unity, whole, permanent, constant, status, pleasure, self, being, life force, creature, soul, man, an individual, a human, a person, and me and mine, along with the many others. Such variation of misapprehensions is called ignorance. The presence of such ignorance brings desire, aversion, and delusion towards objects. And we spoke up to that yesterday. And we also discussed how that ignorance gives rise to aversions and the desire yesterday. And then how that desire and aversion give rise to many other delusions. So we spoke, we discussed about that. And then here, such desire, aversion, and delusion towards objects are the formations caused by the ignorance. So due to, motivations, due to motivated by the aversions or desire or other affective emotions, we engage into actions through any of three doors: body, speech, and mind. We engage into actions through any of the three doors, motivated by such as either aversions or desire or other affective emotions. And that actions that have been created is the karmic formations, the second link. Which is motivated by one of those affective emotions, such as aversion, desire, or any other affective emotions, and which are rooted in the first link, the ignorance. ignorance give rise to those afflictive emotions, and then those afflictive emotions being motivation factors for our actions, and then we engage into um, different actions through three doors, and that is the second um, link, which is the formations caused by the ignorance. That is the karmic formation, the second. And that which distinguish between the individual objects in consciousness. So then third link is the consciousness. The link of the consciousness, third link. And what is it that consciousness? The consciousness is that, that distinguish and perceive the objects. And so that's the function of the consciousness. Mm. Consciousness is the subject. And what does that subject does? Is distinguish the objects and perceive the objects. Consciousness. But when we talk about this link, third link consciousness, then not all the consciousness are the third link. Okay? Are we clear? Not all consciousness. The consciousness of Buddha is not part of this third link. The consciousness of Arhat is not part of this link. Even though that consciousness distinguish objects, perceive the objects. So all these 12 links are, contaminated. Okay. And so when you talk about the third link, the consciousness, link of the consciousness, then we are referring to specific consciousness. And it is a consciousness that carries the karmic seed or potential that has just been created during the second link, karmic formations. At the time of karmic formations, due to motivated by one of the delusion, they engage in certain actions. And when you engage in that actions, that seed or imprint of that actions has been planted or left the seed in consciousness. And that particular consciousness that's carrying that seed, karmic seed, is the third link of the consciousness.
It's deluded consciousness, Geshela.
Yeah, not only deluded consciousness, but is that particular moment of consciousness that carry that karmic seed. Okay, are we clear? So again, okay. There is a third. Consciousness and the four appropriate aggregates that emerge in conjunction with it are the name and the form. So that is the fourth, the name and the form. And what are the name of form is the five aggregates. And what are the five aggregates? The aggregate of consciousness and the four appropriate aggregates, which are the feelings, discriminating mind, compositional factor of mind, and physical form aggregates. Okay? So here that is kind of, and then with the consciousness aggregate, then it becomes five, so that is consciousness, the four appropriate aggregates that emerge, and that emerge from the third link from that consciousness, So that is the name and form. Again, the same way, not all the name and form are again that. You know, if we are referring the name and form for, you know, form for physical aggregate, and name for the four others, consciousness and mental factors aggregates. Then again, those aggregates also have had those aggregate as well, but the aggregate, those are not the name and form. Okay, so this particular name and form are the contaminated aggregates, which are the result of such the third link. Name and form, so that's the fourth one. The faculties, you know, sense faculties or the sense faculties based on name and form are the six sense sources, and that is the fifth one. The fifth. And so also we understand all of them same way, you know. Not all the faculties, you know, not all the sense faculties are not a part of this link. Okay, the sense faculty of the arhat and higher level bodhisattvas and beings are not part of this link. And to be part of this link, of the 12 link of the sixth sense, then it has to be a faculty that is based on this particular link of name and form, which is contaminated, which the cause is contaminated, the result is contaminated. Yeah. Whereas the sense faculties or arhat are not this link because it's not result of contaminated cause, nor they are contaminated. The conjunctions of three factors is the contact. Conjunction means coming together, yeah? Yeah. So three objects. What are the three objects? You know, the objects of the objects of the consciousness. Okay, one. And then the consciousness itself, two. Okay, and the way consciousness contact the object or the way it perceives is through the sense faculties. So when these three come together, the object in terms of our, let's say, my eye sense consciousness perceiving this flower. There's a flower, there's my eye sense consciousness, and then there is my eye sense faculties. And when all these three come together, when all these three objects are there together, then my sense consciousness is able to contact these objects. You know, and when it comes into contact with that object, your sense consciousness is able to come in contact with the objects through the sense faculties. And so all three come together. And then it comes contact with the objects, it perceives the objects, you know, It can perceive correctly, incorrectly, but it perceives the object. And then, come in contact the object, then we mm, distinguish or identify or interpret or distinguish the objects indifferently, So that, and the same thing, also, Arhat, high level bodhisattvas and Buddhas, they have contact with the objects. But again, their contact not this link, because that contact is not the result of that contaminated six sense faculties, because their sense faculties are not contaminated. And then the experience of contact, so the contact is a six, okay, six link. The experience of the contact is sensations. So then when the sense consciousness, the consciousness come into the contact with the objects through the sense faculties, and then experience the objects, and by experience the objects, then feeling arises, sensation or feeling arises. Okay. Different feeling in some cases, when you experience the objects, you experience the objects in a negative way, then there is a negative, unpleasant feeling arises. When you experience the object through that contact, you experience the objects in pleasant way, in a good way, then you experience pleasant feelings, nice feelings, joyful feelings. Or we experience the objects more kind of neutrally, neither good or bad. And when we experience that through the contact objects in neutral, then feeling of neutral arises. Neither is kind of joy, neither is a pain, neither is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So any of those three feelings could arise due to coming in contact with the objects and experience the objects. So that is the sensation or feeling, which is the seven. Attachment to sensation is cravings. And that is the eight, the craving. And then when you experience the objects with the contact, then when you have a nice feelings, pleasant feeling arises with certain object by experience certain object in certain way. Joyful, pleasant feeling arises. On the basis of that feeling, then the craving towards that feeling arises. Wanting that feeling more and more, wanting to repeat that feeling more and more, not wanting to lose that feelings, that kind of craving arises towards that, feelings. And then next one is the nine, here appropriations, or sometimes grasping, translated as grasping in other translations. The intensifications of the craving is appropriations, the ninth link. So then you have craving to that pleasant feelings. And then when we don't apply or we are unable to apply the antidote, and then that craving becomes stronger and stronger, intensify, and then that it becomes the appropriations or the grasping, the ninth link, more stronger than the previous one, more intense. And I think it will come later to describe even a little bit more as we go. And then that leads to the 10th link, that is the becoming. Action that comes from or is enhanced by appropriations is becoming. So there, the karmic seed, actions or karmic seed that has been planted in the consciousness at the time of third link, that consciousness that is carrying that karmic seed, that third link consciousness, then that karmic seed is being activated by this craving and grasping, or craving or appropriations, And when that has been activated by that craving and appropriations, then that seed is like being germinized. Can you say germinized? Fully germinated, fully germinated, to produce the sprout any moment. And that is the becoming. So in these cases, now all the cause and conditions have come together, to produce a samsaric rebirth next moment. So that's, and then with that, the next is the 11th link, which is the birth. The emergency, emergency of aggregates, the 5 aggregates at the time of conceptions. From such cause is birth. So that is samsaric birth. That's 11. So then, through the craving and appropriation, then this karmic seed is being germinated or fully activated. And through that being fully, Something? Hello? Hello? Yeah. Fully activated. Being having fully activated, then at the time of conceptions, then the consciousness enters. And then when that consciousness enters at the time of conception or coming together of the sperm and eggs, when they come together, and when the sperm and eggs are not deficient, but not all conditions are right, not deficient, and then at the time due to karma, consciousness enters, and that time that sperm eggs that has that consciousness, then that aggregates those at that time then become the birth. So the persons, even the persons or whatever being, even though they might not have come out of the womb, still in the mother's womb, but it has started. The birth has already started. The 11th link. and then the 12 link. The maturations of the aggregates after the birth is aging. From that moment, then you started to ripen or develop, whether it's your body, physical form, or your mental form in some way. That ripening or maturation or that development is aging. So aging starts from the very moment of birth. Mm? And the perishing of the decrepit aggregates is the death, and then the disintegrating of the aggregate, you know, um, when the consciousness leaves the bodies is the death, when the body comes to an end because there's no life sustained because the consciousness has left. So that is the death, the 12 aging and death 12 link. So then what is the sorrow? The inner torment of the deluded, attached, dying person is the sorrow. It's the mental state of the dying person. When someone is dying, there's so much because of attached, to so many things, to your body or yourself, therefore you have fear of dying, you don't want to die, or sometimes you're attached to your loved ones, you're attached to a lot of other objects. You don't want to be separate from them. There's a lot of fear, mental, torments, all of that is here, the sorrow. The sorrow here means that mental torments of that dying person because of being deluded and attached. The utterance that come from sorrow is limitation. So what is the limitation? When Buddha says, aging, death, and then after the aging, death, sorrow comes, and after the sorrow, limitation. So here explaining each of that. Limitation is that's out of that sorrow, then you started to say in your words, crying, whatever different despair, speech, whatever it comes, um, so that is limitation, or even sometimes maybe cursing and all kind of things, um, and then suffering, after that limitation, suffering. So what is that suffering here? The suffering here, it means the experience of discomfort associated collection of five consciousness suffering. So as you are dying, the person who is dying, then there's a lot of discomfort in the, associated the five senses, consciousness, that five consciousness, the collection of five consciousness are the sense consciousness, five sense consciousness. So in relation to five sense consciousness, then you have a lot of discomfort, in relation to the bodily sense consciousness, your body starts to feel uncomfortable. With your eye consciousness, maybe you cannot see, or you are becoming kind of blurred and all of that. Your hearing is unable to hear well, or unable to hear, or unable to hear well. You are unable to smell, or unable to smell well. You are unable to taste, or you cannot taste well. You cannot distinguish what the taste. All of that, all this discomfort, all those five different kind of discomfort that is related with those five sense consciousness is what it means here, suffering. Mm? And then distress. After the suffering, then distress. So what is that distress? Then mental suffering accompanied by the attention is the distress. So then, with your bodies, you have all this discomfort as while dying, discomfort that's related with the five sense consciousness. And not only those discomforts, then due to that, you are aware of all this discomfort and everything. Then you started to have distress in your mind, mentally distress, you know. Hmm? There's physical discomfort that is related with the physical sense consciousness, and then you are aware of that, and you started to feel all this discomfort, all of that, and then started to have mental stress, distress, then all kinds of things could happen, what is happening, being confused, what is happening now, in your mental state, you know, you know, what might happen, what might not happen, what is going on, confusions, would I live, am I dying, what might be happening after I die, um, is there something, not some things, am I going to go to the lower ends or not? Uh, all kind of things, mental, that can distress you, that dying persons. For the unenlightened beings, samsaric unenlightened, of course, for more enlightened beings who have much more higher wisdom, then they don't go through that distress, you know. But then, yeah, so that is the distress. Hmm? And moreover, any other secondary disturbing emotions are kind called turmoils. And so then after distress, there's the turmoil. So what is that turmoil? Then, any others, secondary disturbing emotions, so many different kind of secondary emotion could arise, at the time of death, and you could be very frustrated, feeling of guilt, regret, all kinds of things, when you started to think, oh, and self-hatred, all the different, you never know what kind of emotion could arise at that time, or your mind is so distressed. You have all this physical discomfort, your mind is so distressed, all of that, and that lead to all, you never know what kind of emotions that could give to rise and disturb your mind. Some people, they started to, you know, give rise to a lot of feeling of regret, a lot of guilt, a lot of resentments, a lot of bitterness, sometimes bitterness towards others, sometimes bitterness towards themselves, sometimes bitterness towards the life itself, sometimes bitterness towards the world. So you never know, what. So all those different states of emotions could arise and disturb your mind, and that is the mental turmoil talking about here. Why do we have to go through all this? Why do we need to go through all of that? Nobody want to go through that, but we go through that. Why do we need to go through that? And again, you know, because of cause and conditions, because of dependent arising, as simple as that, cause and conditions. Because we have created cause and condition that lead to that state, as we talked yesterday, it's nothing to do with punishment. It's to do with having created cause and conditions. That is it. The dependent arising. Nobody, nothing is punishing you. to go through, having go through that. Yes, this.
If you've got consciousness coming in at conception, carrying karma, what about when people have, say, a genetic predisposition to a disease or blindness or something? Is that just a condition of the life that they're entering, or is there some alignment karmically with that kind of genetic vehicle that they're going to be living through in that life? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I no, I hope so. It's hard to, but I would think there is karmic involvement because we might, like 5 children coming from the same parent, and we carry the same kind of genes, but then my one of my parents might have, let's say, diabetes. One of might have another illness. And so then one of the child carry that diabetes genes, the others doesn't carry. One of the others carry other illness genes, the other doesn't carry. And one might carry all of them, then others doesn't carry. So there is some other factors. There is a gene coming, but how does it get passed? The same with not only genes, you can in illness, it could talk about other qualities as well. Someone, your parents very smart, and one of child carry that gene and they are very smart, but other child might not, somehow doesn't have that same smart kind of that gene, and they are not as smart. And it could be many other characters or many other qualities. And so even though they come from same parent, but somehow they don't carry the same thing exactly in the same way. And so there is some other factors that kind of is like, you carry this part of this here, you carry part of this here, you carry this part, you carry both that, you carry only one or whatever, how it was, is the karmic cause and conditions. I think is very much involved. Yes.
I don't know how to ask this as a question, so perhaps maybe if I can just clarify. So in some traditions of Buddhism, they break the cycle of dependent arising, so say by concentration to remove craving, perhaps some other thing. But then that is where they remain because there's no suffering. This kind of nirvana that's just simply the removal of suffering because of the force of that concentration. In the Mahayana, the Arhat or Buddha remains within cycle of dependent arising, but is a purified form, and it's neither suffering nor nirvana. It's something other. Not quite.
No, I wouldn't. The difference between the Mahayana and non-Mahayana understanding of tenet, is in non-Mahayana traditions or their understandings, once you achieve nirvana, they talk about nirvana with a reminder and nirvana without reminders. Nirvana with a reminder is, so this our aggregate, it is all our previous karma and delusions. That's why we're in samsara. Okay. So then you work with your mind and then you are able to free from all the delusions, including the root of all these delusions, the ignorance. And when there is no more of any of those delusions, including the very root of all those delusions, the ignorance, when you're free from all of that, then you achieve nirvana. Your mind is free, as we discussed yesterday. When your mind is free from all this delusion, then that is nirvana. So you have achieved nirvana. But still you have these aggregates, the body, we still resolve previous karma and delusion. So therefore you still experience physical discomfort. Maybe not mental distress, all of that, but still you could get sick, you can die, you will die. This physical cannot live forever. So that is what they call with remainder, because you are still carrying these contaminated aggregates or physical aggregates. So when you die, then there is no more this physical aggregate. There's no more remainder from the past. And then you achieve nirvana without remainder. And once you achieve that nirvana, then in some of this, then it's like you are totally, and there's almost like nothing. Then there's no continuity after that. Then you are totally free, bliss, but there's no continuity in terms of coming back, consciousness continuity. Whereas in Mahayana understanding, even Arhat, who have achieved nirvana with reminder, non-reminder, the consciousness continues. And they still have the potential to become a Buddha. And eventually, they will enter the Bodhisattva path and they will achieve in Buddhahood. Even the Arhat will achieve Buddhahood at some time. In a non-Mahayana, but there are three paths for the practitioners. Either Arhat, solely realize that Arhat, and fully enlightened for the Bodhisattvas. Depending on your inclinations, whatever, you achieve that, and then that is it. You achieve this, is it. Or you follow the Bodhisattva path, you achieve Buddhahood. And so once you achieve whatever enlightenment or the final result, then there's no more coming back. All of them. Even the Buddha, there's no more coming back. So that is their understanding. In Mahayana, the consciousness continues in all of them, and all of them continues. Even those two, they will achieve enlightenment at some time. They also have the potential to become Buddha nature. In others, they don't become Buddha anymore now. They have no chance of becoming Buddha. They are free from the samsara. There's no more suffering, but and so those are the differences. Okay, and also in Mahayana, then even as you achieve Buddha, you will continue to come as long as there's sentient beings to help liberate. And when there's no more sentient beings, the Buddha does not have to not come. There's no need to come. But if they want to come, they can come too. But as long as there is sentient beings, then there is a need of them coming to help and benefit, and they will continue to do that. Yeah.
Is that always the potential, having overcome one's delusions, one's ignorance? Is there, if one is with remainder, can one then mistakenly create negative karma again?
So,
You reach a point where you
the
don't
only thing
create.
you don't create any more negative karma because there's no more ignorance.
There is no. You can't.
There's no more delusion. There's no more ignorance, and so there's no more karma to be created, and no contaminated karma to create it. So, but still, since your body is still the result of previous karma, and so until you die, you could, in their understanding, you could still be experiencing some pain or discomfort, physical discomfort.
But not suffering as a result.
Yeah, not suffering, no mental suffering at all, but physical discomfort. One can experience physical discomfort. One can have some kind of illness. One can feel physically challenged, physically bad, all of that, but not mental, no mental turmoil, anguish, distress, no mental suffering. But physical discomfort can be, it can have physical discomfort. Mahayana understanding, there is not even physical discomfort. You know? So that is one difference. There's yeah. So there is a little bit of small kind of differences of their understanding of that. In terms of mental suffering, both of them have same understanding. There is no mental anguish, stress, sufferings. But whether there is a physical discomfort to an arhat or not, then there is slightly different understanding of that. And so therefore in non-Mahayana, they even think the Buddha even have a physical discomfort because of his, before he became a Buddha, he was still being in unenlightened, fully unenlightened being, so he still carried that body, and therefore, when he ate that food, that he was poisoned, and that affected, and so these are their explanations of, that is what, again, even though mentally he never suffered from that, all of that, but there was a physical discomfort. Whereas Mahayana, which says, these all are Buddha showing that expect, but that is not what really, happens. So there's a little bit of this slightly different understanding and interpretation of that. Yeah. So then here, I think they are called ignorance, is called ignorance, or those different state of mind that perceive, wrongly. Those are called ignorance because of huge darkness, because they are mistaken and they don't see things as they really are. And therefore, because of that huge darkness, because they are unable to see clearly things as it is, or reality as it is. Formation is the sense of forming, and the second link, karmic formations is called formation because it's, coming together for many things, energies, intention, due to intention, then, through coming of the motivation, then in relation to certain objects, then behaving, acting in certain way, either through body, speech, mind, all of them, whatever. So because of that, and so it's the karmic formation. It's called consciousness in the sense of causing to know. The consciousness subjects, consciousness is called consciousness because, you are conscious of the objects because you perceive the objects. The consciousness perceives the objects. Consciousness knows the objects. Consciousness is conscious of the objects. knowing or conscious of the objects or perceiving the objects. That's consciousness. Sense of causing to know means causing. Name and form in the sense of mutual support. The mutual support, the name supporting the form supporting the name. They're mutually supported, depending, especially we talk about, the body and the mind, they're mutually supportive. When something bad happens to our mind, it affects our body. When something bad happens to our body, it can affect our mind, and vice versa. And when we improve our physical well-being, it can improve our mental state. When we improve our mental state, it can improve our physical well state as well. And in that way, they could mutually kind of support. It's the name, the body, and those consciousness, the other aggregates. The sixth sense is souls in the sense of inner way, So sixth sense sources, is like the inner way when you enter some gateway, and it is the gateway for the consciousness to contact the objects, that allow that inner gateway for the consciousness to contact the objects. And so that is why contact is in the sense of contact, So contact in the sense of getting in touch with the objects, and when you get in touch with the objects, by getting in the touch of the object, then you can feel the objects and experience the objects. So in that way, it then is the contact. Sensation or feeling in the sense of experiencing, So, yeah, the feeling or sensations, is something that you experience. It's not something kind of physical, but something that non-physical that you experience. Craving in the sense of thirst, just like thirst. When you are thirsty, you want more, to quench the thirsty. So when you are thirsty, you want to drink water because you feel thirsty, and to quench that thirsty. And same way, craving is wanting more and more. Appropriations of becoming in the sense of appropriating, in the sense that becoming is that not so. Appropriation is like a grasping in the sense of appropriating, environment, getting, putting together. So your craving, as it increases, so then it's a sense of appropriating or wanting to get more, bigger, and that's from it, and that's appropriation. Becoming in the sense of giving birth to repeated becoming. And birth in the sense of emergence of the aggregates, and the aging in the sense of maturation for aggregate, death in the sense of perishing, sorrow in the sense of grieving, limitation in the sense of walling, suffering in the sense of bodily torment, distress in the sense of mental torment, and turmoil in the sense of secondary disturbing emotions. Okay, so I think we'll stop here. No, page number 11, the second paragraph. So continue from past. Furthermore, not knowing reality. So not knowing the reality, that's why it's ignorance. We talked yesterday. And then other one, in the sense of misunderstanding it, which is much more worse as we discussed yesterday. Not knowing is ignorant on one level, but misunderstanding the reality is much more worse level of ignorance and more dangerous level of ignorance. And that is not understanding it, the reality is the ignorance. So this ignorance is not only not understanding the reality or not knowing the reality, is misperceiving or misunderstanding the reality. And so therefore it's much more worse. And so here then, what is ignorance has been discussed a little bit. Okay, and as I mentioned yesterday, okay, maybe it might come later. If such ignorance present, three type of karmic formation develop. Okay, so when you are not free from the ignorance, and when the ignorance is present, then that ignorance, being motivated by that ignorance, then you create three kind of karmic formations or karma. So in that case, generally, also you see two kinds of ignorance. Ignorance of ignorance of the reality of preceding the self and all other phenomena that exist inherently. That's the fundamental ignorance. And there is ignorance of law of cause and effect karma. Not understanding law of cause and effect, or misunderstanding in sense there is no law of cause and effect. Believe that your actions have no consequences. And therefore become careless. I can do whatever I want. My actions have no consequences. Misunderstanding that there is no consequences. So that is one level of ignorance. So, and motivated by that kind of ignorance of law of cause and effect, that your actions have no consequences. On the basis on that, then you create, non-meritorious or negative karma. And then on the basis of the other ignorance, the ignorance of reality of things existing inherent existence, on the basis of that, or motivated that, then you create contaminated karma of meritorious and immovable. Both of them are virtues, but contaminated virtues, because they are motivated by that ignorance. So that is where it comes. Okay. Three types of karmic formation develop. What are those three? Those lead to meritorious states. That is the meritorious karma, okay? And so that is part of the virtuous karma. And that is the virtuous karma that gives, high rebirth, such as human beings, such as human beings, high rebirth, such as human beings. And that is a virtuous karma. It's a virtuous karma, but still is contaminated. And it's contaminated, and because it's contaminated, the virtuous karma, even though you will have higher rebirth, but still it is within the karmic, within the samsara, that virtues doesn't help us to get rid of samsara or free from the samsara. It only provides better high rebirth within the samsara. And because even the virtues, because it's contaminated, therefore, it gives a samsara rebirth. And because that samsara rebirth and all the other sufferings that come because of samsara rebirth comes there, And then other one, those that lead to unmeritorious state, and that is the negative karma or non-virtuous karma that lead to rebirth in the lower realms, any of the three lower realms. So those are the negative, and that negative karma is motivated by both ignorance, the ignorance of the fundamental ignorance of misperceiving the reality, as well as the ignorance of law of cause and effect. That, not believing, accepting the karma, and therefore not taking responsibility for your actions, and so therefore, and then when you don't take responsibility to your actions, and when you don't believe your actions are consequences, then you don't avoid creating negative karma. And if you don't avoid creating negative karma, then as a result of that, motivated by that, and then you create cause and condition to take a rebirth in such low rebirth, unmeritorious state is where that karma is that ripening karma of that is in low rebirth. Okay, and those that lead to non-transferring state, and this is the direct non-transferring express road. No, I'm just joking. And these are the positive karma also, I think contaminated positive karma that give rebirth to God realms, high God realms, form and formless God realms. And it is called non-transferring state, according to some, I think in Abhidharma Kosha, with others, for example, if we have created karma to be born in as a human beings, or in a lower rebirth, you go to the intermediate state, you go to the intermediate state between this life and next life. And in the intermediate state, while you are taking the intermediate state to be born as a human being, but things can change within that intermediate stage. So it can be transferred, because intermediate state, you do something non-virtuous, and then instead of being born in a human being, you could be born in a lower rebirth. or otherwise your karma ripen to at the time of death to born as a lower reprocessed animals. So then you have taken the part or intermediate state of animals, but then through certain practice yourself or from the support practice of others, so forth, your karma can change within that. And from that, in the intermediate state, instead of being born as animals, then you, within the intermediate state, then you are born as intermediate state of not as an animal, but as a human being, and then next you have human beings. So it can be transferred in that way. In other words, during the partial state, it can change. Do you get it?
Didn't know that.
It can change. Even you have taken the parto either to be born as a human being or animal, but that could change. It could be changed in that period. And that is why 49 periods are regarded important so that we try to change that. Of course, from the part of being themselves, if they can do, and also from the outside support, whatever it can be done, how much influence that can be done, trying the best, But once you have taken the parto beings to born as a form of formless God, then it's going to be there. It cannot be changed. It's untransferable. So that is what it's saying. That's,
Say, they're diagnosed with cancer and they decided not to have treatment. They just decided to live the life that they had led. Does that have any sort of effect karmically on rebirth, or, are there any consequences? Is it seen that they've made that decision in ignorance, or?
Can you repeat the first?
Yeah. So if somebody, say they diagnosed with cancer, they decided to not have chemo or is that decision they've made something that's been done in ignorance, and does it have any effect karmically on rebirth?
Well, whether you decide to take chemo or not decide to take chemo, in terms of this fundamental ignorance, either both of fundamental ignorance is there, unless you have a realization of emptiness. That doesn't change either way. So I don't think that has any influence in that, for the birth. Of course, in terms of ignorance part, whatever treatment you decide to take, whatever treatment you don't decide not to take, as long as we have no realization of emptiness, the ignorance will always be there. Yeah. Ignorance is always there until we have the direct realization of emptiness, So this is non-transparent state. Yeah. I think this would be more, that's untransparent means that in auto stage. Okay. So in other words here, the third karma is the virtuous karma that lead to higher rebirth of form and formless God realms. That's what it is. So those three kind of karmic formations that is created. This is what is meant by ignorant cause karmic formations. So that is what it is. Okay. So first link leading to the second link. And in between that, we don't talk about link, but as it already is discussed in the first link about the ignorance, there's something in between that, but we don't talk as a part of the link, as mentioned. Due to that ignorance, then it gives rise to one of particular emotion, desire, or aversion. And then out of that desire or aversion, then you engage, one of those non-virtuous actions, for example. So also that is also involved between the karmic formation and the ignorance, such as the desire or the aversion can be, also they're involved there. But either way, whether they are involved directly or not, but due to that ignorance, that fundamental ignorance involved in all of them, and so that due to that fundamental ignorance, when we engage into either virtuous or non-virtuous actions. Okay. And either we engage in virtuous or non-virtuous, both of them are contaminated at this point, as long as it's motivated by the ignorance. And because of that, then even the virtues can only give us better condition within the samsara. So in that case, in that sense, that virtue is limited. It cannot lead us to nirvana, total freedom from the samsara. It can only give better conditions, better situations within the samsara.
Just like,
Yes.
can you give an example where an ignorance gives rise to a meritorious state? Like,
Yeah. Well, whatever virtues I'm doing, okay, practicing generosity, helping someone, or making offerings to the Buddha Dharma Sanghas, or giving generosity to someone who is in a need, or giving some kind of being kind, polite, giving some encouragement, some wisdom, whatever that, any form of practice of generosity, moral discipline, or any kind of meditations. Whatever we do, those are virtues. But still, since we don't have that realization of emptiness, we don't have realization of emptiness, still in the deep, there is the ignorance. So while I'm doing generosity, there is still some kind of grasping. While I'm making offerings, still there is some grasping involved in subtle level. Whatever virtues I'm doing, even when I'm doing meditating, there is a certain subtle level of grasping. And that is the way, in all this practice, we have certain level of expectations. Even though sometimes we feel I don't have any expectation, to find out being disappointed later, that shows there was expectations. Do you get it? At the very beginning, we thought, oh, I have no expectation. But then we find out, oh, you're disappointed. I gave this for this reason. I didn't give for that. Disappointed. Unhappy. You didn't spend that way. I wanted to spend it that way. Or you didn't acknowledge. You didn't even say thanks. You didn't even acknowledge. Which feel hurt. Unknowledge. That means there were some expectations. Otherwise, you wouldn't be hurt. Otherwise, you wouldn't be disappointed. So there is certain level of expectations. And so that certain level of expectation comes, there is certain level of kind of, attachments. And there is certain level of attachment because there is certain level of grasping. So there is ignorance involved in that.
so until really you have a clear understanding of the true nature of reality, all your actions, all of them this element of ignorance.
Is involved there. Is involved there.
So,
Maybe sometime more subtle, sometime more gross, depending on our understandings. Even we don't have realization, maybe through our understanding, trying to apply some practice, meditation. Maybe we might not have a strong grasping, but there can be subtle level of grasping. Yeah. Yes, please.
Geshela. The pure realms, beings that through certain practices can allow their consciousness to be projected into those realms. Those consciousnesses will still be contaminated, so they'll still be within samsara, but they may be able to engage with beings that get direct teachings from beings that aren't trapped in samsara. Is that correct?
Yeah, those teachings on Pure Land is a little bit complicated.
Yes.
I of course struggle a little bit. Sometimes I find a little bit kind of contradictions with some others' basic teachings. And I struggle a little bit with that. As much as I would like to believe there is that sounds is kind of hope, certain hope in that. But sometimes the way it is explained in that, sometimes I feel a little bit, clashing or contradicting with certain of the basic fundamental teachings. So sometimes it's a little bit hard, but anyway, the way it is explained is there are still the being in there are necessarily not all of them are samsaric beings. There are beings within the Pure Land. They can be the Buddha themselves, and high level of bodhisattvas who have no more delusions. Those who are in about the eight bhumis, and then there are bodhisattvas who are still not free from the delusions and the karma. And then there are ordinary beings who are in Pure Land, not the bodhisattvas, but who are in Pure Land and who are still not free from the karma and the delusions. But supposedly in the Pure Land, they don't have the suffering like we have here. The lifespan is much more longer, and they don't suffer like the sickness and aging, all of that. So they are free from those kind of sufferings. But in terms of the delusions, karma, by being born there is not that it's gone. You still need to work on that while you are there. And so they have, you can say, better condition to practice the Dharma, with the less pain and sufferings in that sense. Okay, so that, and then, but also there is also in some teaching, it says, so the bodhisattvas, a lot of bodhisattvas, they pray to be born in a human realm than in a Pure Land. Within this samsaric ordinary human realms than to be born in a Pure Land. And because where there is more suffering, they can make more progress quickly for true practitioners. Where there is more sufferings, they could have more stronger compassions, they could have more stronger renunciations, all of that. So for true practitioners, of course, if someone doesn't have a strong determination, strong practice, then maybe they can be knocked down by that, and then that could be obstacles. But for true, brave, determined, strong practitioners, suffering make them more stronger in such, and so it inspire their practice more strongly. So then they talk about the Bodhisattva actually inspire and make even those who are born there sometimes, being born there Bodhisattva, some of them, might not be necessarily by intentions, but then they would like to come here instead, being born there. So there is that pro and cons. Let's in one sense. So it depends, and one of the difficulty I have is not necessarily purely in itself, but maybe I think maybe how it is explained sometimes. One thing, yeah. Sometimes how it is explained by some, is that you just need to have a faith and then recite the mantras or the prayers, and that is it. And that one I have little difficult. But in some, if you read the sutta themselves and some other suttas, then it is not only that, it explains about a more ethical discipline, moral as a basis, and the bodhicitta intention as that. So when there's ethical discipline or practice, and then involvement of the bodhicitta mind, and then the mantra practice, all of that involved, and that you have the inspiration to be born, then I can understand a little bit of that, is possible. And then the other little struggle I have, I'm not sure whether there is a kind of external world, just like we talked about nirvana and samsara being a state of mind instead of being some kind of external place, that ones I still have a little bit of kind of difficulties, or challenging personally myself. Yes.
A difficulty I have is one, as you say, it's almost like I aspire to be born in a pure land, as if it was a place that I would go to. But also the very fact of may I be born, isn't that just the antithesis of what we're trying to work towards, of this sense of self as permanent and so on? And it feels almost like a practice in making the self more concrete.
Mm-hmm.
How does
I guess it
that?
might depend on individuals, It can, for some, maybe it's even though they might say, may I be born, but maybe the main motivation might be driven for benefit others.
Yeah.
Not selfish attitude, but bodhicitta mind. For some, it can be a selfish. It's more about, so it depends, I think it could, even though we use the same, may I be born, or may I be this and that, but again, different people can have different levels, intention, motivations, even the way we perceive the I can have also different, even someone who have direct realization and emptiness still have that, may I be benefit for all sentient beings.
True, thank you.
But that doesn't always mean there is that kind of grasping. Yeah, but for ordinary beings, it can be. For ordinary beings, it can be. To not have realizations. all I can share. And so then next comes the third one. So before we go to the third one, because I wanted to touch a little bit, because especially when it is karma, and now we are talking about the second link, the karmic formations. And yesterday, when we went through the sutras, Buddha started, the sutra started with external, outer or external dependent arisings, and then internal dependent arisings of 12 link. And when you talk about the external dependent arisings, outer dependent arising, then it talks about very clearly about cause and conditions and multiple cause and conditions. And also when it talks about the internal dependent arising, it also talks about cause and conditions, just like the external. And that is where I feel I would like to kind of touch a little bit, because I feel sometimes there's a little bit misunderstanding of karma. First of all, my understanding of karma in Buddhism is definitely not predetermined, or fixed, like a fate, Karma is actions, it's active, happening all the time, That means we can change, It's not like everything's in fixed and we just follow, and we just go through the process, in the motion, the process of that, and so there's that. But more than that, what I wanted to talk is sometimes we might hear, or sometimes we might think, or sometimes we might say, oh, it's all it's karma, it's karma. So easy, it's karma. Anything happen, it's karma. So easy to say it. In that way, sometimes we might not take responsibility for our present actions. Sometimes it's almost like washing your present actions. Oh, it's karma, past karma, Latin. Or sometimes it could be just like giving excuse yourself or someone else contribution for that situations by saying karma, And due to such misunderstandings, sometimes people can become what we call stubborn and not trying to fix the situations. So it's karma, So that is one. And in that, what we don't understand is the cause and conditions. Those both need to come together. And in these cases, what we are doing is we are completely taking off the conditions, ignoring the conditions. Just like in the seed, to grow a plant, we yesterday in the sutra explained that the seed as being the cause, Okay. Then the sixth element as being the conditions that help and support this cause the seed to grow as a plant, where it produces flower, fruit, all of that. So such as the water, earth element, water element, fire element, wind element, space element, time or season elements, those are the conditions. And we need both the cause and conditions. The cause, the seed, and all these conditions. If you don't, even if you have the cause, the seed, if you don't pay attention to those conditions, it will not grow. Whether that seed will grow or not, it depends on all the conditions. Whether you are able to put all conditions, how well condition you, whether you continue to give those conditions or not. So the karmic seed is the cause. There's a karmic seed or karmic potential in our minds, everyone's mind stream, consciousness carrying different kind of karmic seed. That is like the cause. But that karmic seed to activate and produce the result, a lot of other conditions are needed. Just like those 6 elements and more than 6 elements, multiple conditions are needed. Also, a lot of other conditions are needed. So our state of mind, our actions, our behavior, our choices, and other conditions play as a condition for ripening of that karma, or whether that karma is fully ripened or not fully ripens. All of that goes. If there's no condition, even with the karmic seed, it will not ripen. If we don't give, if we stop giving water to the karmic seed that we are carrying, it cannot produce the result. And that karmic seed can only ripen when the condition, we give conditions to that. And our present actions and our present state of thinking and the choices we make, our state of mind, how we think or not think, and our actions and all of that acts as a conditions. And therefore, if we choose to change those conditions, then we don't have to give rise to the ripening of karma, whether it's our karma or ripening of someone's karma. Do you get it?
Yes, so
So just like that, we have to apply it's not just how it works in the external law of cause and effect and dependent arising, it applies same to internal dependent arising. And we have to apply that. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
You said that if you have virtuous action or non-virtuous action, but with wrong motivation or intention, then it will be still within 6 realms of samsara. So to get out, what kind of action should you do?
Yeah. To get out of that, then you need to sign up with me. I have a web page. You just have to sign up that and become member of that. The way getting out of that is to have the realization of emptiness. And that's the key. When we have the realization of emptiness, then that can act as the direct antidotes to that ignorance. And then you can cut that ignorance, you can destroy that ignorance. And when there's no more ignorance, then there's no action that is motivated by that ignorance. And then every action you do become uncontaminated. Instead of being motivated by ignorance, it will be motivated by the wisdom. And so therefore, every action, generosity, making offerings, you know, homage, or moral discipline, patience, whatever other practice you do, then all become cause of freedom from samsara, but not a cause for to be within the samsara. Yeah. So coming back to that karma things, applying those is I think is important. And so when we talk about having certain level of freedom, I think it's one of the Katamba masters, one of the masters, where he says, what kind of action we might have created in the past, look at our situation now. They say, your body, your aggregates, and that, what kind of future you will have, look at your mind, something like that, present mind. So, so the cause and conditions, and applying also here in the internal cause conditions in relation to the karma. I might be carrying billions of positive karma, negative karma sit in my mind streams. So whether the one of those positive karma rippens, karmic sit ripen, or one of negative karma sit ripen, it depends on the conditions. It's like in the garden, you have so many seeds. And wherever you give water, that will grow. The other side that you didn't give water, the seed will always remain there, but it will not give rise to sprout and the plant, and it will not grow. The seed is there, but it is not growing because you didn't give the water and other conditions. One side you water it, you give other condition, it's growing. So it depends on which one you water, what condition, to which seed that you give those conditions. And so this karmic seed, which has already been created, is there, is already been created there. So in a way, that is something that we can undo it. Of course, there are certain purification in that, but other than that, but then even is there that not being purified, but still, if we don't give the water and the condition, it will not ripen. So which one ripens? So it depends on our present conditions. When you talk about karmic seed, we are talking more like a past, which we have already created. The seed has already been planted. When you talk about the condition, it's the present. Whether you give those conditions to those seeds which has already been planted, will you give those conditions or not? And that condition is in our hand. And those conditions are like, as I mentioned, the choices we make, the different state of mind, positive, negative, all different, and our actions, all of them play roles, so many of that in activating those karmic seeds. And those are the conditions. And those two have to come together. So when we think of that, then while we think there is karma involved, at the same time, we cannot ignore our actions, which is the condition that it plays for ripening of karma. Whether it's our karma or it's ripening of someone's karma. Many conditions. Yeah, whether it's ripening our karma or it's ripening other, because sometimes, yeah. So I think that is, it is important to understand those things. Sometimes we tend to ignore that condition part. That condition part. A lot of people sometimes when you talk about karma, when you started believing karma, you have understanding, study, and then you start to have believe in karma. Then somehow, sometimes we tend to kind of ignore that condition part and seem to karma, and totally kind of
Predetermined.
yeah, kind of even we say it's not predetermined, but it's still the way we think is, doesn't think about the condition part. Seem to ignore that. So both need to come together. And again, in this sutra, I have made very clear of importance of both need to come together, both in external and internal, dependent arisings. So that is one extreme, when you ignore the condition, all this just kind of think everything just the seed, the cause, the karma. Then as I go, the other extreme that I find is the materialistic approach or view, which there used to be even in the past and in our modern time too. It's all about immediate cause and conditions. Everything's happened because immediate cause and conditions, and totally ignoring the karmic contributions. Do you get it? It's all about fixing the immediate cause and conditions. If we can fix all immediate cause and condition, then we can fix the problems or whatever that is, and totally ignoring the role the karmic potentials or seed play.
Before that.
No, I'm talking about in general. I'm telling you different situations. For example, if I'm sick, or if we are sick, the modern way of looking at it is nothing to do with my karma. It's all about something to do with my diet or my, let's say, my lifestyle, or maybe it's a genetic or something, all of that, is all those conditions and nothing to do with it. They don't see the role of karmic in that. So they only talk about the immediate cause and conditions, and they only try to fix that problem by changing those immediate cause and conditions. That is one approach that we see in a lot of in this world at our time, and also that kind of approach was also there was some school of thought also in the past of that too, but that's very strong now. So I feel that is also another extreme. If it's only about immediate cause and conditions, if there's nothing to do with the past karmic potentials, then I find many things that cannot explain. And the only explain you see, how they explain is miraculous, but we don't know. We don't know how it happened, how it didn't happen. There's no explanations. you know. So when you try to really ask if this is all these cause and conditions, immediate cause and conditions, if it's all about immediate conditions, then it all the conditions are here, but it didn't happen that way, it should happen. Or all the conditions are here that it shouldn't happen that way and it is happening that way. So when you explain how is possible, we don't know. It is miracle. A lot of times you see that kind of terms. It's a miracle because there's no explanations. We cannot explain. Or sometimes we use lucky, unlucky, you know. Or sometimes we use coincidence. It was just a coincidence. Those are the different terms we use. It's the term that we use because there is no explanations. Basically, different terms that we try to use it. Because just by the condition, one cannot, but when you take the karmic context and karmic seed or potential involved, and with the conditions, then you can see that sometimes there is only the karmic seed, the conditions are not there. Sometimes the conditions is there, the karmic seed is not there, so it doesn't happen in certain way. But when both will come together, then it happens. You know, it's just like the external world. If there's no seed, you can put water, you can have good soil, you can put water, there is the heat, there is space, there is the time and the season, everything, but nothing will grow. Condition is there, but the cause is not there. Sometimes there is the cause, there's no condition. You need both cause and condition. Same with the internal world. You need the karmic cause or karmic seed as well as the immediate conditions. Sometimes there's a karmic seed or potential, but there's no immediate condition that it doesn't arise. Sometimes there is a condition, but there's no karmic seed, then therefore it doesn't arise. But when both come together, then it arises. Yeah. And you know, you see so many different experiences, life experience, if you watch, observe around you, in your own life and around you. If you don't take in consideration both of them, it's hard to explain. Even during the COVID, you know, even in monasteries and in other people that I know, you know. External condition wise, there are all the conditions, you know. Someone who has a COVID and they didn't know they had the COVID and they have been together all the time for many days. But that person didn't get the COVID from that person, even after spending so much time. Someone came to see that person for a couple of hours. They sit together to talk a couple of hours, and then the other person got the COVID from that person. You know. External condition wise, the other person should get it. He was exposed, you know, with that person for not just 2 hours, for days, together all the time. Whereas other person was exposed for a very short period. And it's not necessary that this person who was exposed was having some kind of low immune system and the other persons are having a high immune system to resist it. Sometimes the other person who was not being exposed was a vulnerable person. And person who got the COVID from other who was a very strong, healthy person, not a vulnerable conditions. So then when you see, it's hard to explain from the external conditions. There's something more than that. And so that's where the external condition, and when there's karmic conditions or the karmic seed, then it happens. But when the external conditions, their karma is not there, then even in such conditions, someone doesn't get it. And also, we see very often like that, people who live in a very, very, unhygiene environment, polluted, and very unhygiene environment. And still many of them, and lifestyle, not healthy lifestyle, still who happen to have good, healthy life, not gone to hospital, or only very minor couple of times, healthy long life. And then we have others who have all the conditions that they should be healthy in terms of their lifestyles and, in a less pollution or no pollution, or maybe probably there's no place with no pollution. Maybe less pollutions and better hygiene and better condition, all of that, but who struggles a lot of health issues and so forth. But in external condition wise, one other person should have more health issues and the other one should have less of that. But again, it's not only the external, there is something else as that. The karmic potential of the seed and the conditions have to come together. And that is how I see it. So, yeah. So we have to take consideration in both past karmic seed potential as well as present conditions coming together to produce whether it's a good experience or bad experience. Or whatever good things happen, whatever bad things happen, is a combination of past karmic seed and present conditions. And therefore, we have to take care of both, for ourselves and others. So in that way, we also take responsibility for the past karmic potential seed, as well as we take responsibility for our present actions, without ignoring either of them, because both of them play a role.